Ready when you are, CB. Do I start in Canada or Mexico?
We didn't do Animal Kingdom.
You really hate us? This is Theme Park Thursday with Dillos Diz. She is Jen.
Hello.
And I am Frank, and we are here on February the 20th.
Yes.
We're actually recording this well in advance.
Yes, we're on top of our game this year. I mean, it's amazing.
Because I am in Disneyland for the very first time.
Yes, as people are listening.
Winter weather permitting.
Fingers crossed.
So that is why we're recording this episode a bit early, but we have an exciting guest that we want to jump right into. Jen, of course, we know was a third-party participant.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was called? An operating participant?
An operating participant, yes.
Not third party.
I'm third party, but it was also both names.
You were an operating participant in Epcot.
Yeah.
I was a cast member at #AlwaysMGM, Disney Entertainment Studios, now Hollywood Studios. It's fine. It's #AlwaysMGM. But, you know, what you and I always talk about is how now when we were kids and we were visiting, how, you know, the experience was a whole. And we took note of the cast members and their approach and how they were on attractions and how they were just kind of filling out all the in-between stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we started doing this podcast 7 years ago, you know, our own personal customer service experiences outside the theme parks, you know, we took that Disney knowledge and spread it out.
Yeah.
Now that we do this podcast, you know, we've been meeting people over the years that, you know, similarly, you know, no matter how long or how little they have spent, have parlayed this into, you know, a life work. Would you not agree?
Oh, yes, for sure.
So we're really excited this week to bring in our guest. It's Barry Jacobson, and he's been with Disney. He was with Disney for 37 years. He is, you know, an accomplished executive. He was a chief experience officer. I mean, when Jen and I talked about experience, I mean, this is going to be the guest for us today with Barry joining us.
Yes, for sure.
So I don't want to, without further ado, let's just bring him right in.
Okay.
It's Barry Jacobson. Barry, hello.
Hey, Frank and Jen. So great to be with you today. I love this intro of the two of you because you learn something every day. I mean, operating participant and a cast member at Disney's Hollywood Studios. So you know the magic. And, you know, the OPs had to go through the same traditions as us cast members. It was called orientation when I went way back a long time ago. But it sets the stage, right, for everything you do at Disney.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, your time with Disney is it just, I mean, I feel like we could probably have 5 episodes just about your time with Disney. But before you got to Disney, did you have a love for it then? What drew you to it to begin with?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I was always a fan of the Mickey Mouse Club as a child. And I have a photograph of my mom. I'll send you with her hand over her heart with Mickey Mouse ears, probably from 1956.
Wow.
And so when I was able to get a name tag, as you know, with what is your first memory of Disney, mine, of course, read Mickey Mouse Club. And it was the time with the song, you know, the Mickey Mouse March, and, you know, now it's time to say goodbye. All those heartwarming things that we grew up with that really is the nostalgia and that emotional connection to Disney. So my parents moved us from Connecticut when I was a kid in 1974 to Orlando. I was going to high school. Now I'm aging myself. And when I was graduating, I needed a job. And I was a swimmer. And I had my life-saving instructor course certificate. And I went out to Disney to apply for a lifeguard role, which at the time, as you know, we all have names. It was a recreation host. And I applied for the role in the show. And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any openings." And so I went home a little bit dejected. But then the next morning I woke up, immediate openings for lifeguards in the newspaper at Walt Disney World. So I called the recruiter back, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Come on out, Barry. We'd love to hire you." And I started when I was a freshman in college, working Monday. I'm sorry. I had Fridays and Saturdays off. My shift was 2 to 10 p.m. So I went to college in the morning, got in the car from the University of Central Florida, drove out to Disney and guarded pools, worked on the marina, and did a sundry other jobs at Disney when I was going to college.
That's awesome. Frank, another alumni of UCF, as well as my husband. So in good company. Yeah.
Go
Go
Knights.
Yeah,
Go
we're
Knights.
there. We're right on it, Barry.
Charge on, as they say now.
I love that. And I mean, the other thing you mentioned here is, Jen and I were big all new Mickey Mouse Club fans, big time. And so again, it's that not just like you visit the parks experience, but also this kind of what else Disney was doing outside in other mediums that really carried over into us wanting to be more part of the experience. Just talk, and our early trips to Walt Disney World, we stayed at the Polynesian. So there is also that. It is that first role at Walt Disney World, and the fact that you were at the Polynesian, and that resort is perfection in its immersiveness. Like, do you think that did it matter that it was just that you were a Disney cast member, or was it that extra level of you being at the Polynesian that might have heightened what your future was to bring?
Well, I think early on I learned I was one of 10,000 cast members. And I knew as a young guy, and I was going to college, I was getting my degree in business, that if I was going to be successful in anything, I had to be visible. And I tell that to a lot of young people now. Now, not visible in the way that you're brown nosing or braggadocious. Look at me, I did this, I did that. But I took on many roles when I was a lifeguard. So, example, if they needed help at the luau, preparing the food, and were shorthanded, I'd always raise my hand and go down there. If it was raining out and thundering, as it does often in Central Florida, many times lifeguards were asked to go home. We'd shut the pools down, shut the marina down, and I would volunteer and go to housekeeping and make beds. I think that the shaping of my career with Disney came from great mentors. In my early days, a gentleman by the name of Hideo Amamiya, who's a Disney legend, who was my general manager. Other Disney leaders that I worked with, they really saw that I was a go-getter and somebody that said, "Hey, I want to do more than just my job as a lifeguard, if you will, or a recreation host." And I was always naturally hospitable. My mother taught me that about caring for others. So now when I go out in my other business now, my fun business, being retired, I talk about hospitality is all about caring.
Yep.
So I learned that that's what Disney was all about. The essence of Disney was caring for others and making people happy. So later on in my career, people would say, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm the general manager of happiness, or I'm the director of happiness. I'm responsible for my guests being happy and my cast members being happy."
Yeah.
It's the greatest job ever.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it is such a great like baseline that you had, that you were kind of able to jump into these roles that were all about giving back and all about helping the guests and creating their experiences, whether behind the scenes or in front of them, or making sure they were safe in the pool, or their beds were made. But that's such a great experience to have, and I would imagine kind of kept you grounded as well as time went on to, this is where I started. And I always feel like when people are starting in those types of positions, or and servicing others in that way, that kind of stays with you for the long game. But
Absolutely. And we all know, and you two have worked there, our cast members are key to the overall show.
Yeah.
And I've never forgot my roots. I started as people like to call them frontline employees, but they'll always be cast members to me,
Yeah.
and guests will always be guests.
Yeah.
It really did ground you, and I had extraordinary mentors and teachers, and I never stayed in one place for long. I went from a recreation to front desk to Bell Services, which was called lodging back then, in charge of the bellman at the Polynesian. And then from the Polynesian to the Contemporary, from the Contemporary to Fort Wilderness, all various different roles
Yeah.
that really allowed me to learn the business from the ground up. And, one of the roles that certainly brought me to my future, there was a job called the manager of resort special activities. And it was a department that managed all the incoming celebrities, company executives, heads of state. And you had a team of people that eventually I got the job. I applied twice. I was working at the Contemporary, and I got the role. And it really taught me how to take care of another level of guest, whether it was presidents, dating myself, Nixon or Bush Sr. or Clinton, or even his vice president, Al Gore, all these people I connected with, Princess Di, celebrities. I learned that essence of that business from a woman who was in charge of the area called Jane Keir. She's since passed away, but she's to me, a Disney legend. But she taught you the finer tuning of the guest experience and understanding and meeting the needs of people that are used to being having no worries, right?
Yeah.
So I ran that department for a while. So I bounced around in various frontline roles, and Fort Wilderness certainly was amazing. Back in the day when the train ran through and the night. I mean, can you imagine telling somebody, "What do you do?" I got a train department and buses, and there's this nighttime campfire program with Chip and Dale, and there's a kennel, and there's a bike barn, and there was something else I had responsibility. Oh, the duty manager program. So that was so much fun because you drove around the campground in this really cool car with a picture of Mickey on it, right? And you wave to the campers, and you go say hello, and they'd invite you in for food. I mean, what? Really? Was I working?
Right.
No, I was enjoying life and getting a lifelong education.
Yeah, and it's amazing to be able to have those experiences as you were getting your business degree. I mean, you're learning about all aspects of this major corporation and all the inside, getting all that inside knowledge while going to school to, I mean, it had I'm not saying anything against UCF, but perhaps in a way, almost a better learning experience to be so hands-on.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And again, being involved in projects that started at the Polynesian Resort with Hideo, who was Japanese, and him working on Tokyo Disneyland. And then years later, me being in resort special activities and hosting the executives from the Oriental Land Company with Hideo, and Hideo knowing me from when I was this goofy little lifeguard, and then an assistant manager, and then a manager of special activities, and then having the honor later on in my career to go over and help open that park. I mean, it's the circle of life, right? To coin our friends from Lion King, you look at this career, and like you said, there's a lot to it. But I always tell people I'm a middle class kid from Connecticut who was very blessed to learn from some extraordinary people, and drink the king's wine and eat the king's food and travel around the world and do jobs that were memorable, right? So I have those magical moments for myself, and I've created a million magical moments for the guests and the cast members I've worked with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that you've referenced Hideo here, and I don't know if he's the one that created the list, but in the Be Our Guest book, it's about Disney guest experience. There's a whole list of Polynesian terms, or I forget what the terms and phrases are that they were implemented into the resort for the cast members in the resort. And that always stuck with me of like, try to create your own vocabulary that can translate into, what the staff can buy into and create that culture. I was just at a guest experience conference recently, and what was funny is I went into the conference thinking we're going to talk about how the audience or the guest or the patrons or whomever, how we're dazzling them these days. And I was happily delighted to find out that a lot of the workshops were about how we were connecting to our staff so that they could connect to the public, and what those things were, what sort of things were happening these days to help support that, because we talk about culture a lot these days. I know you're very people first, Barry, so I want to see if you can speak on that, especially working at the Polynesian and knowing what those values were at that time and connecting it to now with work culture, which is such a popular term.
Yes, I loved everything about my time at Disney. In particular, it really does start, as you both know, with traditions and really understanding your role in the show, right? What are you there to do? You might have your role might be a lifeguard, but your purpose is to create the most magical vacation for the guest that's standing in front of you, correct? So part of that is learning that lexicon, that those terms, those cultures. So at the Polynesian, you're not going to answer the phone hello. You're going to answer that phone aloha.
Yeah.
And making sure, what leaders do at Disney is making sure that everybody follows that pattern, that culture. So, I was known as the Aloha Kid because I would walk around and make sure that my front desk hosts and my hostesses were saying aloha. In the beginning, they would be yelling next at the front desk, right? No, stop. Walk to the line. Aloha, may I help the next guest in line.
Yeah.
And it sets that tone. Aloha, mahalo is thank you. Ohana later on in our in the dialogue, ohana means family.
Yeah.
So when you go to the main traditions, you get the Disney overall Disney promise, brand promise. But then when you go to each location, each one is different. So the Grand Floridian, guest requests are never denied. That was a little acronym that we came up with. But welcome to Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. Or if you go to the Disney Vacation Club, welcome home, because it's basically vacation ownership, home ownership. So answering the phone, welcome home, or saying hello. And then Disney creates an environment where people understand that without the sum of everybody, nothing gets done. And it is a huge monster machine that requires everybody to follow standards and behaviors that are expected by the customer, by the guest. I still capitalize guest.
Yeah.
I just do, because the guest is the most important. Your customers are the most important. So I really believe that Disney and other companies like Chick-fil-A and others do a really good job with making sure that you know what your role in the show is, what your purpose is for coming to work every single day. And I think if more companies would start out with clear or clarity of those purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, you might be working in a carbon filter factory, right? Carbon filter. I worked with a company that does carbon filters. It's the charcoal stuff that goes in that keeps your water clean and your air clean. What are they doing? They're just not making carbon filters. They're letting us stay alive. We're getting clean water. We're getting clean air. That's what you're doing every day. You're just not selling charcoal carbon.
Right.
You are selling a life.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things. I think intrinsically, if you get into it, everybody has a purpose for doing what you're doing, right? And I think that's what Disney does so well.
Yeah. I do. I mean, there are so many roles that you've had at Disney, which I want to hear all about, all of them. But I'm wondering, in those early days, as you were really involved in the day-to-day and the servicing of others, do you have a guest experience that like stands out from those early days?
There's a million of them, but
Yeah.
I'll just talk about the early days of just being the duty manager at the Polynesian, and two gentlemen that I had met at the front desk that were extraordinarily unhappy
Mhm.
about a pair of high-end sneakers or tennis shoes that disappeared out of their room.
Mm.
And I'll just say that these guys were guys, if you know what I mean, like wise guys. And to this day, they're a couple of my best friends. I met them in the 80s. We went to the trash dump because what they believed was that the shoes had been thrown away by the housekeeping staff.
Mhm.
And at the time, these were, the Jordans of the time. These were
Yeah.
expensive Adidas or Adidas,
Mhm.
however you want to say
Yeah.
it, shoes.
Yeah.
And they were upset. And when I ever dealt with guests, I was always like, "Hey, let me help you, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna figure this out." And we found the shoes. A bellman had inadvertently taken them with the luggage and put them
Mhm.
in luggage storage. But we absolutely sent somebody over to the trash area at
Yeah.
Walt Disney World, the landfill, to look for them. And I've been lucky enough to have these connections with guests and making people relax a little. There was a
Mhm.
gentleman at the Contemporary Hotel. I'm getting ready to go to their 50th wedding anniversary. So this tells you how long ago it was. Panicked beyond panicked, he lost his camera
Mm.
and came flying down to the front desk in a rage. And, because guess what? You really got to have your camera
Mhm.
when you go to Walt Disney World. And we ended up finding it again, another mishap. He had misplaced it and had put it behind some closet area, didn't
Mm.
realize that his wife and he had to unpack that way. And, he apologized, and he wrote a really nice letter to Michael Eisner.
Mhm.
And I have that letter somewhere here in the office where it said, Barry, you saved the day to save the day.
Mm.
And it's not about Barry, it's a combined effort.
Mhm.
Last story, Contemporary Hotel. This was back in the day when Eastern Airlines was around.
Mhm.
So Eastern Airlines comes in for a convention at Disney's Contemporary Resort. And the meeting planner wasn't too smart because guess what? Everybody had the same blue Eastern Airlines hanging bag.
Mhm.
So we're talking about a convention of about 800 to 1,000 people. And
Uh-huh.
they just dumped them out of the buses. Here comes
Mhm.
all these bags, suitcases plus this blue hanging bag. Did everybody have their bags marked? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
For hours, we sorted through. We put them into a convention room. We had to do them all, figure out whose was whose. We absolutely were given the permission to go through the bags to see if we
Mhm.
can find some identifying information. We brought guests in. We organized it. Everybody got their luggage by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's those kind of things that I remember. And there's a myriad of those stories that we could talk hours. And as you know, I've had several roles at Disney, so I've been able to create some magic not only for guests but for cast members, and that's really my passion. And D23 was one of those events that really is one of the ones that I know you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that, and it's definitely the Golden Oak is because we never talk about that ever, so I'm really excited
Mhm.
to talk to you about that. But you say things that makes me want to tangent just briefly. That what I love is you reference people that you still talk to, right?
Mhm.
So, and one of Jen and I's big things are, cast members that we would see every year, whether it was a server at Beaches and Cream, whether it was the Citizens of Hollywood, whether it was,
Mhm.
Scotty and Jelly Rolls, who we
Mhm.
first went to see, and then we got to know, and there are these long-term connections that are made that I want to just ask you, because there's bucket spillers, there's naysayers, whatever you want to say. Are cast members still making the connections the same way? I think they are, but
Mhm.
but it seems like people don't believe that, and we all, I think that's true. But what's the secret sauce in that? Is it the traditions? Is it just the ability to make those kind of experiences?
To me, there was this guy named Walt Disney who started it all.
Yeah.
And without Walt saying that we're going to be a first name basis company and we wear that name badge to build that connection with the guest right away, I believe that that's part of it. That's part of the magic. And I believe that the the most exciting part about Disney, I mean, imagine if, okay, I'm going to go back to this kid that grew up in a 4 mile square town in Connecticut, Windsor Locks, Connecticut, who moved to Orlando and then got involved in this place that exploded to what it is today. And I got to meet people from all over the world and connect with people from every state in the union. And that's exciting to me. And I think people innately enjoy getting to know one another. And I think people value the Disney cast member connection. Cast members are trained, and it's a pleasure, not the Four Season, it's my pleasure, but it's a joy. Hey, welcome. You're going to go on Space Mountain, have a blast, right? And you get off the attraction, and that same cast member's there and go, what did you think? And oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I didn't know it was going to be so rickety. I didn't know it was going to go upside down. Oh, that was amazing. Thanks for making me go on it. You build a connection. So I believe today that the cast members are still doing what they're supposed to do. Create magical moments and create magical memories, and we all hear this. I mean, Walt said it. It takes people, right? It's the people that make a difference. You have all the great attractions, and you can have all these wonderful shows, etc. But it's the people that really make the magic at Disney.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, and just coming back from a trip where apparently we were both in the parks at the same time. We'll have to go into that deeper. That, there were a few cast members that stuck out, and one was at Oga's Cantina, and he came out, yelling for our party name, and then we were right behind. He's like, "Oh, you're right there," and I'm yelling. But immediately he had such an energy. He saw my husband's Epcot hat. So we started talking about Rainbow Connection playing on Spaceship Earth and how amazing that is. And just his whole energy and vibe, and him taking something like that and creating more of a connection with us. I mean, we sat down and we were like, we would hire him. We would hire him immediately. We love him. And it was 2 minutes of an interaction. And it was so great it's great to see those cast members. And I do think there are way, way, way more of those cast members than any of the others.
Yes, I would agree with you. And
Yeah.
I think it goes back to inspecting what you expect, making sure that every single day that the magic is happening. And I think look, you're on stage. We all, we learned that when we were in traditions.
Yeah.
You're putting on a show every day. So hiring the right people, Disney does a great job with that. They explain what your role in the show is. They tell you that you get to have fun, you get to go out and be a little more extroverted, and you get to connect with people and make sure if coming to work every day and just making people have the most wonderful vacation of a lifetime, which is not inexpensive. But it wasn't inexpensive back in the 80s or the 70s. It was, people saved their money back then because it is a value. It's a day-long experience. And about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, the president of Walt Disney World at the time, George Calagritas, said to me, "Have you been in the park yet to see the show on the castle, the projection show?" I go, "No, George, I've been busy. You need to go." I was working at Golden Oak at the time.
Yeah.
And when I went and I saw that show, I got emotional. And I get emotional thinking about it now because it is so special. It is such a topper to the evening. It's the fireworks are magnificent, but that show just floods all your emotions. Every movie, every song, everything that Disney does to make you feel happy, make you have a lesson is on that beautiful castle projection. I know it's all over the world now. We're doing it everywhere. But I came back and I sat down and I said, this is why it's so magical. And money can't buy magical memories.
Mhm.
Money, yes, you're going to spend it, but you're going to see it through Disney in such a way that you're not even going to care about doling out those dollars.
Yeah. Mhm.
And yeah, it's definitely in the parks, and yeah, it's fascinating to see it evolve, right? Because I think there's more voices in the world, you're hearing more of negative experiences, but that doesn't mean it's still the positive experiences are still very, very strong across
Mhm.
the board, and it should never it's a different experience altogether. But I want to pivot
Mhm.
into a different experience, which is D23, and you get selected to be the general manager of a fan event that's going to basically transform the way other conventions really
Mhm.
do it these
Mhm.
days. When you get chosen, is it excitement? Is it panic? Is it a little both? What's your approach?
To kind of reference that and kind of figure out how did I get involved in that, I was the manager of special events and participant services. So Jen, talking about your OPs,
Mhm.
all the different sponsors, and my team did events for community relations, government relations, marketing, press events. Managed all the OP events with corporate sponsors like AT&T and Coca-Cola at the time,
Mhm.
and Exxon,
Mhm.
and and uh, um, and so I had begun working back when I did special activities with our corporate offices.
Mhm.
Going to really date myself. Don Tatum, Card Walker. These are old names and names that I got to meet. But then later on, I started meeting people in our executive offices. And in 1995, as the manager of special events, the shareholders meeting was coming from California to Florida. And my boss said, "You're going to manage that event. Go out to California and see what this thing is all about," the shareholders meeting. And I met a woman by the name of Marcia Reed, who is the vice president of corporate governance and the director to the board of directors, and a guy by the name of Stephen Clark, who was the father of D23, but at the time he was a marketing guy. And I started getting to know these people. And D23 was a brilliant idea of Stephen Clark. And one day my VP called me in the office and he said, "Hey, this thing D23, they want you to go out and figure it out. They want you to be the GM of it. And, you're going to be," and I was working in group and convention business. So I understood trade shows and client events and space. And this is going to take place, Barry, at the Anaheim Convention Center, and go out there and work with Stephen and figure it out. And so, it was truly one of the highlights of my career,
Yeah.
because what I got to help do was bring together all the business units of the Walt Disney Company and make sure that they weren't outdoing each other, one exhibit better than the other. They had to play nice in the sandbox and get to work with Disneyland executives, Disneyland cast members, and with Stephen and his extraordinary team, Jeffrey Epstein, who was a marketing guy, and Matt Karimi Puya, who was my right hand man, and Michael Vargo, who's now in charge of D23. Michael was the production manager for the show, and it was just a life changing event, because I really got to see the entire company come together and honor its fans. So
Yeah.
that is a fan base created event. Now, obviously, so popular. I think when the tickets go on sale, they're sold out in three
Oh, yeah.
minutes, and they've got all kinds of levels of tickets. But the fun part about it was, and this is where again I kind of came up with some things that made sense. So if they're at the Anaheim Convention Center, we can't serve the typical food that's there. We got to serve the food from the park.
Mhm.
So the folks in, I think it was Sodexo, it might have been, or one of the vendors that run food and beverage, they really partnered with us, and we brought
Mhm.
over the Mickey pretzels and the Orville Redenbacher popcorn and the Mickey Mouse ice cream bars and the
Mhm.
hot dogs from Casey's, so that the guests coming to that fan event could have an extraordinary Disney experience. So the little things, as you know, the details matter. And I remember walking the show and with again, another person who just helped me do so many things. Her name is Leslie K. Combs. She works for Adventures by Disney now, but we were walking the show, and to the left of my eye, I saw all these wheelchairs for disabled guests.
Mm.
And because they were the Anaheim Convention Center, you had them from Knott's Berry Farm, you had them from all these different. And I said, no, can't do that. So we went and changed them all out, brought over Disney World wheelchairs. So it's that essence of that event. And the craziness of it was the guests weren't moving around. So I became the voice on a microphone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the walk. Now, that lasted about maybe an hour. And I went to Steven and I go, we need the guy that's the voice from Disneyland that's on the actual recordings of everything, and we got him, and he came over and he helped make the flow happen, because my voice was okay, but and just seeing the delight of the guests and the delight of the cast members that worked that event, it's probably one of the highlights of my career.
That's so cool. And it is all those little details that make such a difference. And it had to be amazing to, to quote the Hamilton show, be in the room where it happens, where, you're the one like coming up with these ideas and brainstorming with everyone to create these experiences.
Yeah. And one last thing, I again, growing up in the late 60s, 70s, I was honored by our Disney Archive folks to be able to sit in the real Herbie the Love Bug, the original Love Bug. You talk about a moment like your childhood flashes before you.
Yeah.
And so, again, I do get choked up about those things because you look at where you've been and where you are today, and those little memories for me, actually, as a cast member, as an employee of the Walt Disney Company, being able to do some things that nobody else gets to do, and Becky Klein, who's now in charge of the archives, let me sit in that car. Wow.
That's so cool.
And then another shift into premium experiences. Just what's so funny is everyone's been talking about Golden Oak for a long time, and it's something that like my brain just never opened itself up to. And a couple of years back, I finally was like, I'm just gonna drive to see where it is, and I drove by and I was like, and former cast member, so I'm not usually going up there past French Quarter and driving up that road anymore to make the right turn to go towards 535. I'm not doing that anymore. But I was like, oh, let me drive this way. And then I was like, what is happening? And so then, of course, I started doing a deep dive on it. And I was like, I missed this whole part of Disney life here and this community in Golden Oak. So I want to hear your part of it, because I feel like any information I get about Golden Oak is it's something I'm never going to do, but it's exciting to me, and just in terms of an experience and a premium level, how that this is available. I love all of that. It just really speaks to me.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have a small stint away from Disney to go work in the private club business for a company called Club Corporation of America, which is now known as Invited. They run private clubs around the world. And I left Disney when I think I was an area manager at the front desk at Fort Wilderness, and I went to work for them, and I learned a great deal about private clubs and having members. And there's a big difference between a hotel guest and a club member. The hotel guests check out, but a private club member is there, could be there 5-7 days a week, either dining or playing golf or all the other amenities that happen in a private club. And it's although, like you had said, Frank and Jen, you get to know cast members, you get to know people, but in the private club business, it's more personalized and customized, and you really have to hone in on that particular member. So George Kalogridis must have remembered that. I had left Disney once before, a second time, to go work for the Dallas Cowboys. I helped do the Super Bowl in 2009 and was the vice president of special events for the Cowboys.
Just
Did
a
a
small
lot of
thing. Small
just a
little
small
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Just America's team. It's fine.
No big
Yeah.
deal.
From the finest name in family entertainment to the greatest name in sports entertainment. Not the WWE, but I
Points.
was the job at Cowboy Stadium lasted a little over a year. They eliminated the job, and I was at home and got this call from George, and he goes, "Hey, we got this thing called Golden Oak." George had just come from California to Orlando, and he said, "We got this thing called Golden Oak. I think you'd be good for it. So and so is going to call you on Monday. They're going to tell you about it. Let me know if you're interested." And I think he called me on a Thursday at about 4:45. I think I called him back at 4:48, and said, "I don't care what this Golden Oak thing is. I want to come home." I was living in Dallas, and so I came to Golden Oak, which was in its infancy. Basically, it was a golf course area that Disney decided to put a luxury home community in, a private club, and have an anchor of a Four Seasons resort in it. It's 347 acres. When I first came there, we had maybe 8 homes sold. It's now in a sold out situation, 350 homes, luxury homes that range in the price of, 2.5 million, 2.8 million, up to 15 or 16 million dollars.
Yeah.
The people that have purchased those homes are lifelong Disney fans. They're legacy homes for these individuals, and a second or third home sometimes for these folks. But the one thing they had in common was a love of Disney. So now we had to take the Disney level of service and amp it up to be more personalized, so you would really understand what the needs are of these members. Not that Disney doesn't do that with their regular guests, but as I mentioned, and this was part of the training, you're going to see these people every single day. And they're not only, how the two of you have gotten to know cast members over the years.
Yeah.
Imagine the personal connection that happens when you're seeing somebody, in the morning, if they pop in for breakfast, or they're coming by walking their dog, or they're riding their bike in the community. They're there all the time. And so a lot of the training was aligned with customized and personalized, and recognizing that we were going to see these folks a lot. The second thing that we did and we thought about was, we're creating a community. And my vision at the time was the communities that maybe I grew up in and you grew up in as kids, where the neighbor was next door and you knew everybody, and the community was different. You're mowing your lawn. "Hey, Frank. Hey, good morning, Jen. How's the kids?" That kind of stuff. And so the basic mantra that we came up with is that we were building a sense of community with every decision we made, and we were driving the resident experience. So now take that resident experience and say, okay, we're living at Walt Disney World. We're on Disney property. Now, these homes are in Orange County, Florida. So Disney was very smart. So you're really not a citizen of Walt Disney World. You don't have, rights, or, you're not paying taxes to Walt Disney World. You're paying taxes to the Orange County, Florida, which you both are probably familiar with when you were living here. And we had the fire services of Orange County, the sheriffs, the police. It was like a regular community, garbage collection. But we wanted to make sure that that experience was one where people felt and got to know each other. So a lot of the training, a lot of the orientation for those members, one of the things that I came up with is, when I would meet them, and I would say, "Welcome to the community. We want you to believe that this is just like living in a neighborhood. And if you need a cup of sugar, or a milk for a recipe, or a lemon or a lime, just knock on the back door of the kitchen, and we'll be glad to help you out." Now, the one thing I would caveat would say, but here's the thing: don't come and ask for lobsters or steak, because that's just not in my budget. And they would laugh. But we created a garden outside of the kitchen to do farm to table type cooking. but the garden was also a community garden. If a
Mm.
club member wanted to come by and get a tomato or a lemon or a lime, and truly we did have that sense of community with that. And it was just an opportunity, and the people that live there are no different than you and I. I'm just going to
Mhm.
say that obviously there's an affluence level,
Mhm.
but they've all worked very hard, like we work very hard
Mm.
to attain the things that we want.
Yeah.
And they're the nicest folks. They love Disney. There are certain amenities that you get living in Golden Oak.
Mhm.
There's a transportation system that helps you get from different areas to the parks and to Disney Springs and other areas. And the other thing we created for them was bespoke events and
Mhm.
bringing a Disney Imagineer in them. They had lunch with the late Marty Sklar,
Yeah.
right? And
That's awesome.
they've met Kurt Russell, and
Mhm.
Kurt Russell would come and talk to them, and they join his wine club, and now they keep going to his winery and for his events every year.
Yeah.
We brought in so many people, and they also got certain perks to be able to see things sooner or be able to purchase things in advance. There's been a lot of changes since I left. I was there for 7 years, but it's a community of like-minded people who love Disney. And the premium level, the luxury level to me is creating experiences where people don't have to worry about thinking. It's luxury is the absence of worry, and our team was trained to listen intently to the needs of these guests and make things happen. So, for example, if you came into dinner, and this happened with one of our club members, and she said, "Gosh, I'd really like to have some Alaskan king crab claws." Now, of course, they were not on our menu, but you both know there's a certain restaurant over at the Yacht and Beach Club that serves
That's right.
serves those
Hmm.
all the time.
Hmm.
It's not a problem, but
Right.
it's training the mind. So, as you know, that story I would tell to new team members when they would come in. I said, look, we have access to 47 square miles of people helping us
Yeah.
and creating something. When these guests ask for something, we have to try to figure it out. And so we brought the crab claws in, and she had them Friday night for dinner. But here's where we took it one step further. We created, instead of giving her the plastic bib that says, lobster on it or something, we created a bib with her name on it and presented it to her. So that's where we tried to amp up the experience. We bought a bicycle and tricked it out, a Golden Oak bicycle. I worked with a company and my team, and we put some saddlebags on either sides. They were coolers, and we put the Mickey Mouse ice cream bars, and we had one of our food and beverage managers dress up like the old Good Humor Man with the white hat and the white
Right.
outfit, and which we got from Wardrobe, and he drove around the neighborhoods and handed out ice cream. So it was that kind of experience that the members pay for. It's not free. There's a club membership, and but the service level is personalized and customized.
That's so cool. Didn't realize most of those things are happening. I've known of Golden Oak, and we look at homes often and just dream. But I didn't know about how much was actually going on within that community. And at the same time, it's not surprising that all those things are going on, because of course they are. But that's really cool to
I
hear.
mean, we had to figure out a way in the early time before some children went. We had children in the community,
Mhm.
so we had to figure out how to get the yellow school bus into the community.
Hmm.
We also did not, in the original plan, build a park or a place for these kids to play.
Mhm.
So we worked really hard with the development folks at Disney and found the money, and we created a park with a playground on it and an open field where kids could play. It wasn't in the original plan. The original plan said, oh, these people will use these as vacation homes, 10
Mhm.
to 15% year round will live here.
Yeah.
It's now probably up to 70% of the people live there full time.
Wow.
And they love Orange County, Florida. They love Orlando, and they love the access to the Walt Disney World Resort.
Yeah, that's really cool. How long before there's a school there in Golden Oak?
I think we would probably need a little more mass, but
Yeah.
there are, as you know, there's the Windermere School that's right
Mhm.
down the road, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
now there's a Windermere High School. So there are schools in the vicinity.
Yeah.
They would love to have a grocery store right across the street, and
Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But the people that live there we were able to do things and create so much magic.
Yeah.
One story, gentlemen, what we did is we customized their welcome gifts.
Mhm.
When they, we didn't give them a toaster, or a certain things, the juice glasses with a picture. So we would listen as we met these homeowners, because obviously building a home that's, anywhere between 4,000 to 12,000 square feet takes a
Yeah.
time, and you get to know them, you learn things about them. So there's this one gentleman that was putting a golf simulator in his house,
Mm.
and he owned a company called Tiberius, and Tiberius was around the time of Augustus Caesar. So if you look up Tiberius, you'll see, what Caesar looked like on the
Mhm.
in the sculptures. So
Mhm.
Tiberius had this same kind of look. And we worked with the designer of the game. When the game turned on, as you know, games turn on, video games turn on, and there's like something that comes on. So we worked to
Mhm.
have a coin with the name of his company, and Tiberius showed up when he opened his brand new house and went
Yeah.
in and went to play the game. That was part of his magic. He also had a little putting green, so he had his last name on flags
Yeah.
that said Smith, established 2009,
Mhm.
on the putting green flag. So it was that kind of magic that was personalized and customized for these guests. We had a budget for it, so that was some of the things that we were able to do.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic, especially when thinking about it, of like you're moving into your home and
Mhm.
here's some touches, that is Disney magic basically in
Mhm.
your new home.
Yeah.
I love that kind of story. How, in terms of like a premium experience, is there anything that, because obviously we're talking long term here with living, but is it just a different level of approach when it comes to something like Club 33?
Mhm.
Is because that's more, you're in the park, you're doing the thing, you might just be transient as opposed to, every day.
Well, as you know, that was another assignment that Disney bestowed upon me, was the opening of Club 33 at Walt Disney World.
You open.
And
Yeah.
Come on.
yeah, so as the general manager of Club 33, so the general manager of Golden Oak, they said, "Hey, you're going to take on Club 33. You're also going to take on spas and salons." So those were my three luxury level things, and
Mhm.
Club 33 obviously is so storied and such an amazing place at Disneyland that Walt put into that park. And everybody knows how famous it is and how exclusive it is. And then Walt Disney World decided after 50 years, boy, we could do that at Walt Disney World. And
Mhm.
so the company found four different locations at Walt Disney World to put these bespoke, unique, each one themed differently, a private club in each park.
Mm.
And very similar to Golden Oak, again, club members, high expectations, Disney fans that love the product, and each one of those clubs, and you've probably read some things, are have memorabilia inside them that no one else can see.
Mhm.
If you're not a member, you cannot come in and you can't see certain things.
Yeah.
Same thing with the food and beverage and the china, glass, and silverware. Each location different and unique and theming, and that is a very popular club. We anticipated our first year being at a certain level, and we exceeded that number by a
Yeah.
crazy number. And then obviously, as you know, there's a waiting list for Club 33 at Walt
Mhm.
Disney World now,
Yeah.
and so the same kind of level of attention to detail and fulfilling the needs of these guests. So in creating magical moments,
Mhm.
it's no different than, I wouldn't say it's not different, but it's you're gonna it's like in the parks, right? You're working an attraction and you see the kid crying, you're gonna go up and figure it out and
Mhm.
make that child happy. Same thing in the clubs. What's going on? Oh, they really want a Mickey Mouse lollipop. So one of our club advisors would run down and go get a lollipop, and help the kids smile.
Yeah.
Or we got smarter. We have some in the back of the house, and
Right.
create some magic. Um, that's what is so much fun about Club 33, Golden Oak, and the Disney experience is that
Mhm.
everybody is trained to exceed expectations and try to ensure that there is no blips in the experience. And from time to time, we all know that happens.
Mhm.
Not every company is perfect, but I've been doing consulting now, and uh, I have to say the Walt Disney Company and Walt Disney World, and the opportunities I had in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Paris,
Mhm.
we got it right. Um, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun to kind of help people see that light bulb go on.
Yeah.
And I don't today. I've worked with an orthopedic and spine center company out in Denver, a couple of addiction clinics, a large scale indoor entertainment center for children. The bottom line to it all is training your people to understand that they have an ability to drive the experience and
Mhm.
make sure that everybody has a good time. And most organizations are getting there because people today are not tolerating anything less than great service
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
great value.
Mhm. Yeah, we've talked a lot before about carrying over everything that anyone who has worked for Disney learns into other businesses, or trying to get that same level of service in a retail location, at an airline, wherever it is. I know that you spent some time in Vegas as well, which is another massive tourist destination. How do you think delivering that guest experience compares tourist destination to tourist destination, or is it the same for both?
That's a very good question, because I think when you talk about Vegas and you talk about the Dallas Cowboys,
Mhm.
and then Disney.
Yeah.
This Disney is a very PG, not PG,
Mhm.
G-rated,
Yeah.
sorry. And then you go to PG at the Cowboys experience, then you go to R-rated in
Yeah.
Vegas for the most part. Although Vegas to me is really an extraordinarily over the top fantasy like, you know, uh, it's over the top.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I think where each different location in Vegas for me, some do it really, really well,
Mhm.
and that has to go back to the training, right?
Mhm.
And what is it that we're doing here, and how are our behaviors going to affect the overall experience?
Yeah.
And I think when I went to Cowboy Stadium, there were so many things extraordinary. Jerry Jones, despite the fact his aura that he's this crazy owner of the Cowboys and he's, nutty, he cares about the guest experience. He cares about the fan experience. And he allowed me to just go in and upgrade and help people understand that we're putting on a show. So we'll give you a quick example at Cowboy Stadium. The bartenders in the private clubs that people pay an extraordinary amount of money for their ticket, and then they pay an extra amount to be able to access a club level.
Mhm.
The bartenders were opening beers, and the top of the beer would just fly, right? And I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, ladies and gentlemen, here we're not in Clancy's bar. We are at the Cowboy Stadium where we're pouring an $11.50 Bud Light into a beautiful plastic Cowboys Pilsner glass.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to open this bottle.
Yeah.
We're going to pocket the top, and
Mhm.
then we're going to pour the beer.
Yeah.
It's a show, and
Yeah.
it's the level of execution that befits the price tag.
Mhm.
So I think in Vegas they do a very good job of driving the opulence, and
Mhm.
you're not going to the $1.90, you're not getting the dollar shrimp cocktail anymore there.
Yeah.
Back in the days, it's an expensive place to go, so they
Mhm.
better be driving the guest experience and the value and the show.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in many places where it is worth the value. I mean, I went to dinner in Vegas and this guy created mozzarella tableside, right?
Mhm.
I can't remember the price tag on it, but let's just say it was expensive,
Yeah.
and it fed 5 people or 6 people, but it
Mhm.
was a show and it was worth every penny.
Yeah.
So I think that's where organizations, people will pay for the experience, people will pay if it's a show, people will pay for the value and the memories. And that doesn't matter where you go. I mean, if you go to a 7-Eleven and they're friendly and the place is clean
Mhm.
and they say good morning to you and they, say, oh, hey, here's a free banana, because that has happened to me when I go in there, because I guess maybe they create magical moments too.
Yeah.
uh, it's that experience. So I
Yeah.
think, your question was a good one, and I think if organizations would just focus on training the teams to do the right thing and just train them through stories.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of read this manual and you'll learn how to do
Right.
this,
Right.
or sit in front of a computer and answer these questions.
Mhm.
You've got to have leaders and you've got to have trainers that are telling you how to do it and helping you and guiding you, because that makes the employee comfortable, right?
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
want to know how to do my job. I
Yeah.
don't want to be somebody who's just haphazardly coming in every day and don't understand how to perform.
Yeah, I think the training is the key, and I also think that it gets overlooked more so because time moves so quickly for everyone these days. How I know that you have leadership training, and I know you have this. You have your speaking engagements and your workshops. Is there conversation about time sometimes? 'Cause I feel like time management is another element that sometimes in this very rapid lifestyle we all live in,
Mhm.
and really effectively knowing that you can take the time to go through these processes. So I am curious about your workshops and your trainings to know how that you can provide that buy-in for everyone.
Yeah, I think there's so many statistics out there right now that'll tell you if you don't spend the time up front to train your people properly,
Mhm.
they're going to quit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Retention's not going to stay
Yeah.
there. It's not going to
Right.
work. So I don't throw up a lot of those stats, but I do reference the longevity of some
Mm.
organizations that
Mm.
do it right, and we know that Disney spends a lot of money to train and educate and help people understand there's a succession plan for your life here at the Walt Disney Company, and you can grow in the organization
Yeah.
if you do the right thing. And there's countless other companies that invest in the basics, and help their team understand what those basics are to be successful and to be able to do your role. So if I remember there was a time, when uh, there was efficiencies that were needed to be met in the Walt Disney Company, and training kind of faltered off a little. But I think they learned some valuable lessons then.
Hmm.
And putting somebody out on the front desk at one of our resorts after only 3 days of learning that computer system, you're just not going to be ready.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not easy. And so you have to have the trainer, you have to have the qualified trainer, somebody next to you. You have to have the little badge. I love Disney, earning my ears, right?
Mhm.
That
Hmm.
that says, look, I'm in training, but I'm learning. And so guiding and coaching and training your teams will pay off.
Yeah.
And you'll keep them, and you'll keep them long term. I mean, there's countless cast members like me who hung around Disney for a long time. There was a reason,
Mhm.
because the leaders were always helping you to grow. They were giving you guidance. I had my share of being in trouble. I made mistakes like
Mhm.
everybody else, but I was always given an opportunity to learn. And
Yeah.
I think that's what people want.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just as we slowly wrap things up here, because we could go on forever. Uh, talk about maybe an overview of a speaking engagement that you do these days, to the type of workshops you're doing, and maybe a little bit of leadership training, because I mean those are obviously the things that are speaking to me.
Sure.
But maybe what people can expect when attending something that you provide.
Yeah, so I leverage my years of experience in the hospitality industry and really help people to guide them on leadership, employee engagement, quality service, and the consistency that has to take place in order to be successful. And that's I believe is the big word, consistency.
Mhm.
The companies today just have to do it right every single day. The expectation is there from the consumer.
Yeah.
Don't mess with me because I'm going to write you up on social media. I do speaking. I have a speech that I do that's called From Main Street USA to Your Street, building a culture of excellence. And I take you through a journey of hospitality and caring and how leaders should behave and tell stories about quality. I actually have a book coming out in fall that is aligned with customer centric stories that have happened to me at Disney and beyond. Customer centric stories, Disney and beyond, not infinity to beyond, but I've been fortunate enough, and you can find some of these stories on LinkedIn that I've been writing for a long time, that kind of just help people understand that there's these little things that you can do to be successful. There's sometimes a cringeworthy mistake that happens, and you learn from it. So I have, a story about when I was in convention services and 5 different mistakes that I made. But if you don't learn from your mistakes, then they're not a mistake, right? You learn from them, and so I got a book coming out hopefully in fall. And so I spend my time working with companies. So the funny thing, people always say, "Oh, Disney, so you must teach Mickey Mouse 101." No, but it is the things that we learned at Disney. But I really teach people the common sense that it takes to come to work every single day, energized and focused on what you're supposed to do. And that consistency that drives extraordinary organizations to, at the end of the day, sustain themselves and be profitable. And so I get excited about it. I tell a lot of funny stories from my time in the club business, and things that I did really well, and things that my team did really well. And really, it goes back to training and developing your employees to understand how important they are to the organization. Everybody matters, from the back of the house. Jen, you said it earlier, behind the scenes, to the front of the house, backstage and on stage. Every single person matters to the overall experience. So that's what I talk a lot about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what you're saying is you will be coming back to talk with us once your book is coming out, or is that something we should just schedule now?
Well, that would be a blast to do. I'd love to talk to you again. I didn't get to the tuna fish story. I didn't get to the toaster story. I didn't get to the story about almost killing the board of directors in Tokyo. There's so many things that I could tell you about. I
So
can't
Michael
wait.
Jackson in a boat. Michael Jackson in a boat. Is that a story?
Oh yeah. I got
Oh,
Michael Jackson. Yeah, there's a lot of things that, listen, as I said, I was so lucky to do the work that I got to do, and I had fun all along the way.
Well, Barry Jacobson Consulting.com is the website, right? If anyone wants to explore and see what you have to offer. I mean, there's a lot here, which is really cool. And makes me excited. I really appreciate the foundation that was laid for you, and how I'm an improv guy, so you ended everything along the way, and just in your level of engagement with other departments, really, that speaks to me. That Polynesian time speaks to me a lot, because just going, no, I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be over here, and I'm going to be here, and everyone's going to know me. And I, as someone who's like a little introverted, I'm like, oh, I get that. And I really love it. So I just love then how that you then expanded that into a life work that is just really impressive. And we look forward to that book in the fall, and the multiple podcasts we're going to do.
Yes.
Well, I'll see you soon. I'll see you real soon. And thanks for having me on.